Welcome to the For the Love of Language podcast. I'm EJ.
And I'm Stacy.
And we're super excited to be doing this episode today. We're actually in the same room sharing a mic today instead of speaking from different states over Zoom. So this is new and exciting.
Yeah, we're recording the podcast live in person. Wait, no, just in person. It's not live for you.
But it is in person.
But it is in person for us, which is cool and new and different.
Which also means that I'm not going to be able to edit the audio quite as well as I normally do, but I think it'll come out great anyway.
You can clip some of, the super weird
It's
bits.
just, if we, overlap, or if we, interrupt each other, it's going to be a little bit harder to, separate that out.
That's true. That's true.
Other than that, I don't think it'll make a difference.
It'll be more authentic.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about body language.
Yeah. How fitting that we're actually talking about body language in our in-person episode with us, in person together. Okay, that's actually kind of funny.
That is fantastic. We didn't plan it that way.
We didn't.
But I do like it. I'm a fan.
I'm a big fan. So I guess we'll just get started with talking about body language. The first thing that I thought of when you brought up the topic of body language was physical space and personal bubbles, because I think that's an aspect of body language that I think a lot of people forget about. It's easy to talk about, smiling and physical gestures and head nodding and all of those different things, but even just how close you are to another person can have a huge impact on what you say and how you say it and how it's interpreted.
Am I in your bubble right now?
We are very close together. We're shoulder to shoulder. And that's not why I brought this up. I'm fine being shoulder to shoulder with you.
It's cool. No, I think it's a really good point. And, when it comes to the personal bubble, which I think is a very, street way of saying your personal space, what you allow, it is very different culture to culture.
It is. Yeah. So there are some cultures that have really small personal bubbles, so you're allowed to be a lot closer to each other and it's not as awkward. And then there's other places. I think the United States has a pretty reasonable sized bubble, would you say?
I think that would depend on who you're talking to,
That's
right?
true.
Because if you're talking to someone from, a lot of Latin America, they'll probably be why are you so far away from me? Mm-hmm. Versus if you were talking to a European, they might be you're a little bit in my space right now.
Yeah. Americans between Americans, though. What would you say? Do you think Americans have large personal bubbles or smaller?
I think it's in the middle.
In the middle?
I think it's in the middle.
That's what I was thinking, too. Is, we a good, I'd say, 3 or 4 feet between people when you're talking.
Right, and it is also contextually dependent.
It is also contextual.
Right.
If you were at, a cocktail party, I'd say 3 or 4 feet between each other would be...
Probably.
But, at the club, of course, it's, a completely different scenario.
Right, in the club versus, in a professional setting versus a friend setting, those are also going to be different.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, a few feet between people is pretty normal.
Yeah, but, that, how you interpret how close you are to somebody else really shows your knowledge of social situations and awareness and cultural adaptation, right? Being able to understand in this scenario I can be this close to somebody, but that's not the case in another scenario. That's a form of literacy that is completely unspoken.
And if you mess it up, it can be really awkward.
It can be.
Because if you're talking with someone and they're trying to get closer to you than you're comfortable with, it feels aggressive.
Yeah, it does. And that can lead to some unintentional hostility that's just felt, even though it might not be spoken. Mm-hmm. And I think the same can be said with other parts of body language too. Another thought that came to mind just speaking about things that might appear aggressive is the classic resting bitch face. Because in some cultures, you're not smiling to each other all the time when you're talking, and people can be a little bit more
Yeah.
Neutral in the face.
I take issue with the term.
I mean, I take issue with the term too, but it's like colloquially what it's called.
I know it is, but like, what about my face when I'm not smiling makes me a resting bitch? Like,
the patriarchy, darling, the patriarchy.
Yeah, but it is true. Like, Americans tend to smile a lot, and this also varies between states. But like, in Utah, people are gonna be super, super smiley, and then if you go to Finland and you start smiling at people all over the place, they're gonna be
think
like,
"You're crazy.
What's up?"
They're like,
or
"What's wrong with you?"
Gonna be like, "Oh, it's an American."
Right, exactly. So that's like another part of it too, is like how you're looking, because the things you may say, you may say like, "Hi, it's nice to meet you," and you say that, with like a smile on your face. But if you say, "Hi, nice to meet you," and you don't have a smile on your face, depending on who you're talking to, the context, it could be seen as inflammatory.
Yes, and that's actually a really, really interesting point. So last year, I actually read a couple different body language books. One of them was called The Definitive Book of Body Language by Allan and Barbara Pease, and I thought it was an excellent book.
Yeah.
But the one that I liked even more than that was What Every Body Is Saying by Joe Navarro. And I think that one of the things in his book that he mentioned is that when people are lying, there is an incongruency between what they're saying and their body gestures.
Yeah.
And so if you're able to catch on to those subtleties, then you can tell if someone is really sincere or not, potentially. There's all sorts of other context you need to take into it. But what the body is saying can be just as important or even more at times than what words are coming out of your mouth.
Yeah. Like, if you think about, classic detective stories like Sherlock Holmes and some of those other things that you see on TV, or just like what detectives do in general, anyone who's trained in like interrogation or something, like you're trained to look at how the body works and like what people are doing, not just what they're saying, and that can tell you a lot about how they're reacting to certain things or what they're saying might be true or not.
Yeah, so we touched a little bit on personal space and smiling. What are some of the other body language, gestures, and cues?
Oh, you said it right there.
The most important?
You said gestures. Gestures are huge. People love talking with, that's a generalization. That could be culturally relative. Whether or not you gesture with your hands can be culturally relative or important. Some cultures have very specific hand gestures that they use for very specific things, right? The thumbs up might not always mean, "Hey, that's great." It could mean shove it up your ass.
Yes, you do want to be really careful with hand gestures and acknowledge that they're not going to be the same across cultures. I actually had a little incident once when I was making the peace sign, and I was just thinking, this is the peace sign. I was in a seminary class with a British teacher, and in Britain, the peace sign, especially if you turn it backwards, is not good.
Yes.
So I might have gotten into a little bit of trouble in high school for that one.
Yeah, so the way that you configure your fingers can be really impactful to how people see you or know about, how they interpret what you're saying. Certain gestures mean certain things.
Yeah, let's talk about a couple things specifically. I think one thing that comes up a lot when you're talking about gestures is whether your hands are open, palm up, versus palm down.
Yeah.
And the extreme would be pointing. Pointing at someone generally comes off as extremely rude and aggressive. But if you have your hands palm up and open while you're talking with someone, it seems like you're welcoming opinions, you're welcoming diverse views, versus if your palms are down, it seems a little bit more definitive and less open and welcoming.
Interesting, yeah, because there are some cultures. I've been watching a lot of Chinese dramas lately, EJ. Ooh. Oh, they're really good. But something that you see sometimes in Eastern Asian countries is the come here, right? The come here gesture. So sometimes, in the United States, we'll use your pointer finger and gesture towards you, or sometimes you'll have an open palm and you'll bring your fingers in towards you as like a welcoming gesture. But in other countries, having your palm up and moving it towards you, that would mean something completely different, or, you know, that might be the rude way of doing it. The way that some cultures prefer it is you have your palm face down and then you bring your hand towards you. So almost as if you're scooping something up, scooping something in, not scooping something up, I guess. It's hard to talk about these gestures on a podcast.
For sure, but I think we're doing a pretty good job.
I think we're doing a decent
describing
job.
Them.
Yeah.
It is difficult.
So yeah, the palm up and the palm down can also be culturally relative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something kind of related there, in martial arts, a lot of the time, like in Kung Fu, people will put like a fist and an open palm together and do a little bow or something. Or you'll have a handshake in different situations. And one of the reasons that I've heard for that is that you're showing both of your hands to show that you're not holding a weapon.
Interesting. Yeah, that would definitely make sense in those martial arts contexts, but you kind of bringing up the like bowing or like the showing of your hands in a martial arts context also got me thinking about how people will greet or show respect for like elders or have certain like welcoming gestures. You know, again, in like East Asian countries, they have different types of bows that you do. In India, you usually, if you're like welcomed into a home, whoever's like matriarch, patriarch, you'll touch their feet and as like a sign of respect. And so there's different gestures and different forms of body language to show that that you care about and like you see somebody's authority. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really interesting thing too, is we also use body language to show hierarchy.
Definitely. And there's a couple other like really interesting, I think, cultural things you can call out. For example, there's like very Orthodox Jews. Mm-hmm. A man will not shake a woman's hand.
Yes.
And so that can end up being like an awkward situation if you try to shake someone's hand not realizing that culturally that's inappropriate.
Yeah, who you share gestures with matters as much as what the gesture is at all.
Exactly. And I think a really interesting thing here actually is how gestures changed during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Because before COVID, everybody would be shaking hands all the time. Yeah. And now, a super common and just widely accepted replacement for that is an elbow bump.
Yeah, an elbow bump or like a fist bump or something.
Which was never a thing, really, before COVID. Like, maybe if you had something in your hands, but now it's, like, pretty widely accepted.
And it was considered really informal, too, to do, like, an elbow bump or, like, a fist bump. Like, the handshake was, like, the go-to. And I think in certain professional contexts, like, absolutely, but someone's not gonna, you know, be too miffed if you, like, use an elbow or a fist.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. Well, I think one other thing I wanted to touch on when it comes to body language is actually the lower body and the feet.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about feet.
Yeah. Well, I think it was in both of those books that I mentioned, the authors talked about the importance of the feet and how usually your feet are going to be pointed towards where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And so if someone is like tired of a conversation and their feet start pointing towards the door, you can kind of tell that they're ready to get going.
Yeah. No, there's definitely the direction that you're facing. And I think feet are, like, a good, you know, first tell. But even, like, how you're postured next to somebody can also affect the type of conversation that you're having or how you relate to them or whatnot. You know, we're sitting, like, shoulder to shoulder. But this might be a little bit different if we were sitting face to face. The way that our bodies are kind of reacting to each other. So even the direction you're facing in regards to somebody can make a difference, too.
Definitely. Yeah, so those are a bunch of different points and thoughts about tidbits to do with body language. Are there any things you want to add?
Well, yeah, I think I want to expand a little bit. So we've had like a lot of really good examples, but I want to expand a little bit on kind of like the general idea of body language and how it relates to language with a capital L, so to speak, in general. At the end of the day, humans are just animals, and animals of all shapes and sizes have ways of communicating information with each other. But it all kind of stems from body language. So a lot of, like, our body language is almost like our first defense, or like our first key into like a relationship or what somebody is trying to say. And that's something that I think we kind of lost, especially during the pandemic a little bit. We forgot how impactful it is just to have a conversation with somebody in person, because how somebody is posturing themselves towards you says worlds about how you're connecting with one another.
Mm-hmm, definitely. My company right now is mostly remote, but they have a cameras on policy in meetings for that very reason. It helps you feel more connected, and it's harder to miscommunicate when you can actually see the other person.
Yeah, I mean, think about all the different times that people miscommunicate via like writing or letters or text messages and emails, right? And even like on phone calls, things can be misconstrued. And so language is not just all audio, all visual, or, you know, all like orthographical. It really is a physical experience that we feel in our entire bodies. And that's something that I personally am interested in as a linguist. That's something that I'm personally interested in pursuing, because a lot of linguists try to pick and piece things apart and like isolate the different aspects of language, but language really is a physical production.
So there's something really interesting about what you just said.
Yeah.
And I want to dig into it a little bit more.
Go for it. Pick at it.
Because what you said is that you can feel
Yeah.
the language. And in my mind, this takes me back to when we were doing capoeira together.
Yeah.
And they have the concept of axé, which is the energy. And there's, you know, different ideas similar to this in other cultures and languages. Like maybe the vibe would be something similar in English, or the aura.
Aura?
Everyone's
got a different way of saying it. It's okay.
Different people have different energy around them.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, and if it's mostly body language that would impact that, if you need to be in a room to feel that, or is that totally different from what you were talking about?
This gets into some like spacey philosophical, almost like spiritual stuff.
I'm going deep.
You are going deep. So I don't think it's just body language. I think body language definitely is a part of somebody's vibe overall, but I think that us as humans, because of, you know, where we grew up, our internal biases and preconceptions about things, we, and, you know, our personal fears and experiences from like when we were kids, I think all of that can compound, in addition to an unknown random factor that attributes to somebody's vibe, because that's like we're taking in so much information at any given point, but there's some kind of like through line where I think people can even subconsciously beyond just the physical maybe like pick up on something that might not be initially apparent.
Definitely. And I think even the perceiver's expectations and like both people's energy has an impact on the conversation. It's not just the person speaking, but also the person receiving. Yeah. And this is like, it's not super scientific, right? But
it's not super scientific. Yeah, I mean, it's not super scientific because I think that's the most difficult part about being human and about language, is it's something that we can't, it's so hard to measure. Right? Because there's so much going on, you're basically asking to measure, like, what is somebody's general perception of something, and there's, like, so many, like, little tiny eye movements and, you know, like, infinitely small gestures and reactions and physical, mental, like, you know, neurocognitive, you know, little stuff that's firing at any given point in time. That's not something that you can just assign a number to.
Definitely.
Right? So it's definitely, it sounds kind of woo crazy just because we don't know how to measure it yet.
For sure. For sure. Well, Is there anything else you want to add on the topic of body language?
I don't know. We kind of got off into an interesting space of, like, talking about general communication. And I think that's something that we can dive into a little bit more. That's something that someone has, like, requested of us specifically, at least in one of my, like, distant connections. So I'm kind of interested to hear from our audience or see kind of how people respond to an episode like this. If maybe we need to talk a little bit more about the various aspects of communication and how layered it can be in just the act of communicating itself.
Definitely. I think there's a lot there that we could cover. And I do think probably the biggest takeaway from this, and what I would ask our listeners, is just pay attention to your own body language and the body language of the people around you.
It's going to feel weird.
It will feel weird.
It's going to feel weird, but it is such an interesting exercise once you do it a couple of times. You're like, oh, wow, yeah. I didn't realize I did that.
And even filming yourself can be really useful in this regard. The same way that recording yourself can be really useful if you want to get better at public speaking. If you want to really understand your own gestures and your own body language, it's a good idea to film it and see what you are actually doing, because you might not notice all of it.
Yeah, that actually brings up an interesting story that I want to share real quick. We might snip this around, I don't know, but once upon a time, Stacy went to a performing arts high school. And at that performing arts high school, we did a lot of discussion about, like, movement and interacting with people. And at one point, one of my teachers wanted us to just walk across the room as naturally as we could. And what he and the rest of the class were doing were watching, like, what part of our body do we lead with when we walk.
Oh.
And what that might imply, and how for a different character you might emphasize the way, like, a different body part and how that might move. So, like, some people who present more feminine might lead with their hips and have a little kind of hip swivel saunter kind of a thing. Some people who are maybe very bold and brave might, like, lead with their chest forward. I personally lead with my feet forward, which is a very interesting thing. So the rest of me kind of leans back, but my feet are, like, the first things to kind of push me forward.
I don't know. I strut everywhere I go.
You absolutely do, you monster, you beast.
No, that actually makes me think of the Monty Python squid with the silly walk, the crazy walk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Super, super tangential, but it's a interesting thing to know. Like, when you do record yourself and when you have other people watch yourself, you really notice a lot more. So I will post the names of those couple books that I mentioned in the comments for this episode if you want to check them out. I think it's worth diving in a little bit deeper. And if you do have any comments or questions, please hit us up on Instagram at For the Love of Language.
We're there, I promise. I just forget to post sometimes, but we're there, I promise.
Right? We both do, but we'll work on it. It'll be great.
All right. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody. And bye.
Till next time.
Till next time.